20 years after Katrina, This place is vibrant.
We are resilient people, and we bounce back, and we come back strong.
I think neighborhoods are even tighter. Relationships are even better than they were prior to Hurricane Katrina.
We still have the best seafood on the planet, the best music on the planet, and our culture endures.
There's so many things and so many different cultures, the music, the food, that you can't put your finger on one thing, and that's what makes New Orleans so special.
And I always tell people, good, better, best, never let it rest until your good is better and your better is the best. And we are the best. And that's why I can tell you, New Orleans is the best of the best.
"20 years after Katrina, This place is vibrant.
It is. It's rocking. If you look around here in Jackson Square, the historic St. Louis Cathedral, people from around the globe visiting this vibrant city full of music, as you can hear in the distance, the food. You wouldn't know that hell on earth happened here in August of 2005, Brian.
No, but you go outside the French Quarter and you're reminded every day. And you can't come here and talk to the people of New Orleans without Katrina coming up, especially coming from Fox Weather. That's at the top of everyone's mind, but maybe compartmentalized now. But they'll never forget it. It's unforgettable.
The scars are everywhere for those that know what occurred here, and yet there's a bright future. But there's a lot of work to do still, and that's what all New Orleans will tell you.
People love New Orleans. This is the most unique place in the United States. I was born and raised here. After Katrina, once I got vindicated of all wrongdoing, I got job offers from throughout the country, people feeling empathy for me, wanting to make it right what had happened to me. But I knew one thing. In order for me to get right, I had to get right in my hometown. You know, the governor hired me and put me in charge of the state school system. This guy named Paul Vallis and Dr. Kelvin Adams, they hired me to be part of the rebirth of our school system. And I was put in charge of security. And we put programs in place that help kids, help people, and I watched that maturation process. You know, I watched us go from the ground and come back up.
My grandparents lived in the lower ninth ward. My mom and them always talked about Bessie when we were coming up. And I knew if they survived Bessie, we can survive Katrina. And I know this city is supposed to be here.
I don't care what it is, the city will come back because of it's ingrained in the soil here, the way you feel about the art, the music. I mean, I think people would have gone, and they did. They found other places to go. Austin, Texas is very magical in many ways. And they just found other magical places to temporarily go. But it was like, you could just feel them waiting. Okay, I'm gonna go back, you know. And a lot of people actually moved away. I have a friend that moved to Savannah, Georgia for a while and came back as soon as they could. I think it was like a year and a half. So yeah, you had to survive, you know, and people figured out a way to do that, but they couldn't wait to come back to New Orleans.
If we look at New Orleans East, which is a Vietnamese population, those folks fled Vietnam during the Vietnam War and were sent to the United States and created communities in New Orleans East. Brand new, right? And to see the resilience of the Vietnamese in New Orleans during Katrina and after Katrina was awe-inspiring. These are folks that already went through a war and had to leave their homeland, and then went through a natural disaster war with Katrina. And covering that aspect in the aftermath of Katrina after the waters left, and to see how they saved New Orleans East and then rebuilt and tried to make sure that who they were didn't leave New Orleans as a community. Their fight, unbelievable people.
The thing that I remember the most out of any tragedy is afterwards all of the people that come to help, strangers helping strangers, those who will do whatever they can to help their neighbors and their friends. It was a long time before I really felt hopeful, to be honest with you, because this was 20 years ago. We didn't have the capabilities technically to be able to tell the stories from all different angles. There was such a long period of time before we had a lot of information. You know, the levees broke, and then it was hard to get information in that region and to know the scope of it. So, of course, after that, weeks and months and years, you hear stories of people on the ground, groups like Team Rubicon, who I've covered. You know, a lot of these guys, veterans, firefighters, police officers that have the tools, that know how to go in and rescue people, they just all came together and said, how can I help? You know, with nobody telling them they had to do that. You know, I feel like Hurricane Katrina was sort of the kickoff of the real relief efforts from people all over the place, right? So to see all of those brave people saying, how can I help? Let me use what I've learned to get in there and help the most vulnerable, rebuild, clean out, even to give somebody a hug. You know, those types of stories will always be the things that give us hope, and that's the best of humanity.
We're standing at the last remaining house within just a stone's throw of one of the worst levee breach during Hurricane Katrina. We created Rebirth because we want the whole world to know what the average New Orleanian had to see when they got home from their flood-imposed exile. They came home to something that looked exactly like this. Mold growing up the walls. Furniture toppled over. You know, ceilings caved in. The damage that the water does is almost indescribable. We're standing at the last remaining house within just a stone's throw of one of the worst levee breach during Hurricane Katrina. We created Rebirth because we want the whole world to know what the average New Orleanian had to see when they got home from their flood-imposed exile. They came home to something that looked exactly like this. Mold growing up the walls. Furniture toppled over. You know, ceilings caved in. The damage that the water does is almost indescribable. When people finally got their front doors open, they usually had to be chopped open because the wood had expanded. The odor that hit them in the face they had to wear masks in order just to clean out and find their belongings that they could salvage as best they could. The flooding went to about the top of the door frame, as you see. The scale of the death is on the same order of magnitude as 9/11. Or at the Titanic. And here we are 100 years later and we're still talking about the Titanic. And I expect that 80 years from now we're still going to be talking about the catastrophe that happened when a very moderate wind and rain hurricane hit New Orleans and caused all these levees around us to topple. This is probably, it is the last house that still has not been put back into the housing stock and is here for a learning instrument within a stone's throw of a levee breach. I would say we need to pay very careful attention to warnings. There is too quick a tendency for people to say, oh, it's going to be fine. I don't need to leave. Everything's going to be fine. People tend to shut down. And one of the problems is there's no time. You don't have time to think about it. For hurricanes on the way, you have days or maybe hours. But, have a plan in advance. And I think the other thing that I would really caution people about is beware what you believe right after you hear about a disaster. Beware the weather being blamed. The process starts all over again every year at the start of hurricane season. A mild anxiety sets in, an obsessiveness with checking the weather reports, checking for disturbing weather, even if it might be just a tropical depression way out in the Pacific Ocean. I think every single one of us that lived through this still has a mild case of post-traumatic stress syndrome. The reason that we created this house and created this exhibit is because it's been 20 years and a lot of people were too young to remember or weren't born yet, and they needed to see what it looked like. And this is, to my knowledge, the only thing like this, an actual house, an actual breach in an actual neighborhood. And when we created this, we got the input from the neighbors, the ones that we could reach. I mean, some of them were living in Texas or living, on the other side of the city, and got their input on how to set this up and how to put, a piano was a very important part of an African-American family prior to the levee breach. Everyone in the world remembers 9/11 and remembers those steel beams sticking out of the ground. Those are emblazoned in all of our brain. So I held up a photograph of that in front of City Council a few years ago and said, we can't let these memories go away. Everyone thought that those steel beams would be preserved. But one by one, they were taken down for search and rescue, cut up for mementos all over the world. They're gone forever. So I said to City Council, do you really want the memory of what happened to us to be gone forever? We have an opportunity to preserve this. And the city of New Orleans, I have to give them credit, gave us a conditional use permit to turn this house into a museum and an exhibit for anyone who still has the desire to understand what happened, to just see it with their own eyes. It came at huge human cost. But we now have a very, very good flood protection system. The system that we can see right outside the windows of this flooded house is a very, very good system. However, I maintain we should have had this system before Hurricane Katrina arrived. We shouldn't have had to wait for it because the human cost, almost 1,500 people died within a couple of hours. The $186 billion worth of damage, adjusted for inflation, 134,000 housing units, and I could go on and on. This wasn't a disaster, it was a catastrophe. I've already mentioned how neighborhoods are tighter and closer than they were before. Everyone now knows what neighborhood they live in. Even prior to the levees breaking, I'm not sure people were exactly sure what neighborhood they lived in. The people of New Orleans are a neighborhood. We are family, we are friends, we all stop what we're doing and talk to each other, no matter what time of day it is. And the idea that New Orleans isn't coming back, that's why on Mardi Gras, the idea of not having our first Mardi Gras after Hurricane Katrina, that was absurd. That was like not having Christmas, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. So of course we had our Mardi Gras. If anything, I think neighborhoods are even tighter. Relationships are even better than they were prior to Hurricane Katrina. I really do feel that that's the reason the city came back like it did.
are so many people that was never going to leave New Orleans. No matter how much people talk about New Orleans, people love our city. They come here for the culture, for the music, for the food. We are resilient people, and we bounce back, and we come back strong. It puts a fight in us. I had no intentions of leaving New Orleans because it's my city. And I live on the outskirts, but I'm in the city every day. I still work in the city and have family and friends in the city. So it's in my heart. I think a huge lesson and a huge takeaway from that experience, you have to always be prepared for the unexpected. You know, you pray for the best, but you prepare for the worst. Even during the times in which we live now, we have to take heed, we have to be on high alert because anything can happen at any time, whether it's natural or whether it's man-made, naturally made or man-made. We have to be prepared.
I'm the American dream to most people. Somebody that came from the streets, had no standing as far as power in the community, came through every rank on the police department, didn't know anybody, just worked hard and got to the top, and then I didn't forget where I came from. I remember Jerome Smith, he was an icon, he is an icon in this city. He was a freedom fighter during the civil rights movement. And he told me, he said, you special, and you're gonna be successful. He said, but if you reach a level of success and you forget where you come from, your journey to success has been a wasted journey. He said, this community is gonna wrap themselves around you and support you, but don't forget your people. And I never have, and I never will.
Yes, Katrina was horrible, but so was the pandemic, and so was whatever. And I own 6 businesses in the French Quarter, and you know, it can be really devastating and terrifying, but I know that people will come. If you build it, they will come, and we have. And this is a place that people feel very free. They feel like they were step a foot into the past. I mean, again, there's just so much here. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna celebrate. I haven't for the last probably about 6 years, maybe. Really thought about Katrina too much in August. I'm worried about the next thing. I'm worried about making my little vampire empire really magical for the people that come here now. You know, and I mean, it's just, you have to go on. You have to move on.
Natural disasters are going to happen. You know, they've happened for centuries. And I think it's humbling because there's only so much you can do to forecast these things, to predict them. We're getting better at that. But I think for me, it's always going to be trying to convey a message the best that I can to people in harm's way and hope that they listen to that message. And also, you know, knowing that you are going to see the best in humanity afterwards. The storms are going to come. It's going to be dark. It's going to be scary, but the sun is always going to come out. And I think you always have to have hope that things will get better.
This is the highest ground in New Orleans here, and it's actually high naturally. The Mississippi River flows south, and it goes up and down with the flow from the north, the rain and the snow melt and so forth. And when it goes up, it brings a bunch of dirt, and then it goes down and it leaves levees.
Yep.
So this is a naturally high area.
As the French Quarter is, right?
As the French Quarter is, because the ground kind of spreads out. But then the rest of the city doesn't benefit from that. There are actually some ridges called the Metairie Ridge and the Gentilly Ridge in the middle of the city where the land comes up a little bit.
Yep.
And that's from where the river many, many eons ago flowed and left that high ground.
And Brian, that's the thing. The people perhaps don't realize, the Mississippi River continues to change its course, not in full, but expand. And for engineers, it's another reason that it's so difficult to figure out how to keep water out of New Orleans.
Right, this is all about the Mississippi River. This city is about the river. The French here hundreds of years ago said, there's a place to put a city so we can control the river militarily, and now it's for commerce and so forth. But the Mississippi River is a huge and powerful machine, and controlling that is tremendously difficult, and there have been massive floods here over the years and a lot of work done. About 100 years ago, there was an incredible flood in this part of the country, and a lot of work is done here to control the Mississippi and to allow this city to thrive. Now they have a relief valve upriver, so if the river gets too high, they open the relief valve to essentially protect New Orleans and the surrounding area.
Amazing. The engineering is beyond difficult. Very smart people working to save New Orleans for the future as well.
And now with the new flood protection system that surrounds the city since Hurricane Katrina, it's in the best shape it's been in, I would say, forever.
Yeah.
This is the strongest this city has ever been.
Agree.
You know, our city has changed. It's different demographically from what it used to be before Katrina. A lot of people left, evacuated for the storm and never came back. They found better opportunities elsewhere, better jobs, better schools elsewhere, but it's still a wonderful place. We've recovered, we've come back. The city is a great place. I encourage people to come see it and experience it. It's like no other place on earth. I love it here. But we have a lot of challenges ahead of us in the future. We still have the best seafood on the planet, the best music on the planet, and our culture endures, it exists.